Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of Tyler's Tiger Talk. So, Ole Miss comes into Death Valley this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. So, it's not that 11 a.m. game, thank the Lord. Ole Miss is coming in at number 7, right? Ole Miss is undefeated. And I'm going to tell you why right here. First game against Troy. Then they went and beat Central Arkansas. Then road game, Georgia Tech. Then they beat Tulsa. Then they beat Kentucky, which was a home game, 22-19. It's a very low scoring game. Then they beat Vanderbilt. And then they beat Auburn. And now they face LSU. So I would have to say the hardest game on their schedule was Kentucky, and it was a home game. And the score was only 22-19. And yes, LSU fell to Kentucky last year, but Kentucky is really not the best team, and I haven't watched much Kentucky football this year, but from what I've seen, they're a very beatable team. So, if any other SEC team, let's say LSU, their same schedule, and we could possibly be 7-0 right now. You face Troy, you beat them 28-10. You face Central Arkansas, you beat them 59-3. Then Georgia Tech, then Tulsa. Listen, that's an easy schedule. LSU, their first game is Florida State, and Florida State's not the best team, obviously. They're not that good, but they're definitely better than Troy and a lot of other team Ole Miss has played so far. So that attributes to their undefeated season so far. They're 7-0. They haven't been 8-0 in years. This Ole Miss team hasn't been undefeated in years. I mean, if they were to go 8-0, I think the last time they went 8-0 was a couple decades ago. I can't remember the year, but it's been a while. So LSU played stellar on offense last Saturday, as most of us saw. Jaden Daniels hit that light switch, and he just got going, and it looked like a completely different offense. And for a little bit there, we were like, okay, now our offense is doing good. What the hell's happening to the defense? Because 2 straight games in a row, the opposite team ran all over our defense, rushing the ball, running and running and running. And that is something LSU is definitely gonna have to worry about this week with this Ole Miss offense, is they're gonna run the ball down your throat. And can you battle that and put the brakes on their offense? Or are you gonna let them have big explosive plays? And the thing about this LSU team is, even when the other team gets going faster than we do, LSU doesn't give up. In years prior, this team has been more, I don't know the word, aptable. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but more prone to giving up. They've been more prone to giving up when, let's say, they get a punch in the face. But this LSU team this year has really been on fire as far as getting behind and coming back. Obviously, with certain teams, you're not gonna be able to do that, such as Tennessee, when you got behind and they just have too good of an offense to come back and try to win that game. But listen, I think LSU is gonna win this game. I said LSU was gonna lose against Tennessee, and we did. I said we were gonna beat Auburn. I said we were gonna Mississippi State, and I said we were gonna beat Florida, and we did. So I got a little bit of a good track record going, right? With SEC teams, I guess that's 4-0 that I've gotten so far. So I'm 4-0 on my picks for LSU. I've said in the past, I really don't like predictions. I don't like saying, "Oh, LSU is going to win 28-14, whatever." I don't like that. But if LSU can do the same thing on offense as we did last Saturday, we're going to win this football game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than just a touchdown. Especially if we can stop Ole Miss's run game. And listen, as much as you want to fear their run game, don't be surprised if they come right off the bat and start throwing the ball. I've predicted it before with teams who, they're this throwing team or they're this running team, and they come out on the field to do quite the opposite, and that happens all the time. Teams try to trick you, and Ole Miss will do that. So it's always good to have a game plan going up against a team, especially if you know they're a run-prone team or a pass-prone team. But be ready for both. Be ready for Dart to get out on the field and chunk one downfield the first play of the game. Unlikely, but possible. So you have to be ready for situations like that. So I'm really excited for this game. The Ole Miss series is one of my favorite series. It's LSU. Obviously, Alabama's the biggest rivalry, even though we get smacked almost every year. But Ole Miss is one of my favorite all time LSU Ole Miss football series. I just love it. There's just something about it. It's always a close game, no matter what, and it's really a rivalry that's kind of grown on me. I always love it. I'm trying to think what my first Ole Miss LSU game was. I remember one year I got to go on a field for the Ole Miss game, and then sit on like the 50-yard line. I can't remember, but I don't know if that was my full first Ole Miss LSU game. It's just the one I can remember first. But that was a really insane game. That was like, it was close. I think we beat them 49-42, but it was just an insane game for what I can remember. And there's always insane LSU Ole Miss games. If you just look back in history and see, it's always a close battle. But I think LSU will come out victorious this Saturday. And the only thing I'm worried about, obviously, is special teams and defense. Being able to stop the run. I think if we stop the run, our defensive backs and safety that are good enough to stop the passing game. I don't think Ole Miss really has that much of a passing game, so I think LSU will be okay on that. Just stop the run. Just don't let them run it down your throat or get out on the edges. You saw that a few times against Florida where you just got beat off the edge and they allowed big plays. You had that 81-yard by Richardson, and then you had like 50 or 40-yarder, I can't remember, run by Johnson, and you just let them run too much. Granted, yeah, you had those big plays where it was like 50 yards and then 80 yards. So they didn't really run consecutively. They just ran for big plays when they did run. So let's hope LSU will be able to stop this. So right now, in the SEC West, Alabama is not in control. LSU and Ole Miss. Obviously, Ole Miss is on top of the SEC West right now. They're undefeated. They haven't lost to an SEC team yet. LSU wins this game, they're on top of the SEC. Obviously, they do have to go and beat Alabama to claim the West. But hey, on top of the West. The likelihood of LSU going to the SEC championship, not likely at all, but we've all seen crazier things, and Alabama had made a lot of mistakes in that Tennessee game. This Alabama team just doesn't look like the Alabama teams that we're used to seeing in the past. I said it at the beginning of the season. Um, when I saw Alabama play their first couple games, um, it just didn't look like the Alabama team was, especially on defense. Um, if Alabama does beat LSU, then claim the West, obviously wins the rest of their games and goes to the SEC championship. I think we could see Alabama, let's say, see Tennessee again. Either way, Tennessee is gonna have to play Alabama again, um, and Alabama's gonna win. Listen, I said Alabama would win, and I was wrong on Saturday that I said Alabama would win, and I wasn't very wrong because Tennessee only won by a field goal after Alabama missed a field goal. After Alabama didn't look like Alabama whatsoever, and I'm the last person who wants to go and make mistakes for Alabama. I love seeing Alabama lose. It's almost like seeing Tom Brady lose. When someone wins something so much, you're like, okay, it's getting old. We'd like to see that team lose, and that's kind of how Alabama become kind of like Tom Brady. You like to see people like or teams like that lose, and it's always good to know that Alabama's not this indestructible team, and they can lose sometimes. But Alabama had a lot of stupid mistakes from what I saw, and I'm not one to bring up officiating, but a lot of that officiating was just officiating just in college football recently has not been very good. Um, but especially in that Alabama Tennessee game, it definitely didn't favor Alabama, I'll say. Um, Kind of got screwed over on a couple calls, and then you have when that Alabama, not even the Alabama punt returner, just the blocker for some reason decided to touch the ball, and it was just there, and he decided to touch the ball, and then Tennessee gets the ball, and then obviously scores after that. Nick Saban was losing his mind. But I'm like, what are you thinking about doing that? Like so many times when Alabama just gave the game to Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee won. Good for them, but Nick Saban is going to come back and he's going to dominate you. Uh, I think if Tennessee and Alabama play again, no matter how they play, whether they play in a playoff or they play in the SEC championship, Tennessee's going to get dominated by Alabama. I just don't see Nick Saban really letting that go at all. He's going to come back with a grudge, and he's going to come back fast and hard, and it's going to be like getting hit by a train by him. That dude was furious. You could just see the look on his face throughout the game, and he was especially after that I don't know if you want to call it muffed punt or whatever. It really wasn't. The return did his job, but random guy decided to touch it, and he made a dumb mistake by doing that. But yeah, so Alabama just did not look like regular Alabama. But still, congratulations to Tennessee for beating Alabama. It's still a hard thing to do. Beat them by 3 points, but in a rematch, Alabama is going to beat you by 2 scores. LSU plays Alabama after the bye week, after Ole Miss. So you have Ole Miss, bye week, Alabama at home. And I'm not going to make any predictions. For now, I'm going to say LSU's losing that Alabama game. But depending how LSU beats Ole Miss is how I will predict how bad LSU will lose to Alabama, or if we have a chance at all to beat them. Because even though it would be the smart and wise decision just to say right off the bat, okay, LSU's going to lose Alabama, you have to give LSU a little bit of credit and let them be the underdog and see what they can do. We've seen crazier things. We have. LSU lost by 6 points last year to Alabama. We've seen crazier things. This LSU team could surprise us all and be headed to the SEC championship. I mean, LSU's schedule, when you look at it in hindsight, really isn't that hard. After this, after that Alabama game, you play Arkansas, you play UAB, and then you play Texas A&M. Arkansas has not looked good all year. They really haven't. Then you have UAB, that's a gimme win, and then Texas A&M just hasn't really been able to score all year. Even if we lose to Alabama, you still have a winning season. 9-3. 9-3. But because as I go on and do this analysis more and more and do more of these podcasts, I try to be more realistic. Because Tyler, from a few years ago, like the theories more and like, what if LSU does this? But I'll indulge in the what ifs. What if LSU beats Alabama on November 5th? And then takes care of Arkansas, obviously UAB, and Texas A&M. LSU goes to the SEC championship and faces Georgia or Tennessee. That's just how it is. We went out the West. That's just how it works. Alabama might win the rest of their games, but LSU would still win the SEC West. That leaves in a 10-2 Alabama and then a 10-2 LSU going to the SEC championship. I mean, that leaves Alabama probably out of the playoffs, especially if LSU wins that SEC championship. I mean, the theories can go wild here. I mean, let's say we face Georgia or Tennessee in the SEC championship. We beat them. They're 1 loss. We're 2 loss, but we beat them in the conference championship. What does that playoff look like? Does LSU still not make the playoffs? That's highly unlikely because you beat the best team in the SEC East and the SEC West. This could turn out to be a crazy season, and there's just so much going through my mind right now. I really haven't broken down Ole Miss that much, but I just get giddy thinking about these things. It's because crazy stuff can happen, and this, what I explained to you, is why they're expanding the playoffs. And thank God they are, because 4 teams is just not enough. Especially when you have so much talent and so much that's undecided. Have so much that's undecided. Alabama barely beat Texas A&M. And Texas A&M is not a good team, and they barely. This Alabama team is just not the same. You have Georgia. If LSU wins the SEC championship, you have Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, the playoffs to face Ohio State. See, Tennessee's already beaten LSU. So if we were to beat them in the SEC championship, they have one against one. There's just so much it's so much to think about, and it's craziness. Obviously, what I'm saying is crazy. It's so unlikely to happen. Yes, LSU had such a successful game against Florida, and if they play like that against Alabama or Ole Miss, they definitely beat Ole Miss, and they could contend with Alabama if we played like we had. like we did against Florida. How can our offense really be better, though? I mean, we scored 6 drives in a row. But your offense can always get better. Always. Obviously, Florida's defense is not the best. But still, when you put up as many yards on Florida's defense, you only had, 85 yards against Auburn, and Auburn's defense isn't that great, too. So you can look at it like that. You can definitely see improvement. You can't just get past that. Well, Florida's offense. I mean, Florida's defense is not that good. So no wonder LSU scored 6 times in a row and was able to throw the ball all around the field and run the ball. You can't always say that, and you can't count LSU out. Their offense just looked good. Their receivers, 9 times out of 10, are going to be better than the cornerbacks or safeties that are on them. You have to get better, then go back. You can't go back and play like you played against Mississippi State or Auburn, against Ole Miss, and still win. You have to dominate Ole Miss's defense. You have to dominate them and keep on doing that so you get that momentum and you build and build and build and build so you have a chance. Because say you throw 130 yards passing and 178 yards rushing against Ole Miss, but you still beat them by 3 points. Let's say 20-17, you win. It's just not enough. It's just not enough going forward. I want LSU to do what they did against Florida. I want them to, let's say, we don't get the ball. Let's hope we win the toss, defer, stop them on defense. You have that student section to help you. You stop them on defense, and you score. And you score, even if they start scoring, you score back. You score until their defense can't keep up. And then their offense runs tired. This LSU team has the potential to dominate Ole Miss. Just absolutely dominate them. Last game, the people who were calling LSU to win, and there weren't that many. The people who were saying by a field goal, maybe even by less. And at one point in the game, LSU was up 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. And that was after a muff punt the half before, where we could have scored again and been up 4 touchdowns. Not 4 scores, 4 touchdowns. It's 28 points. 4 touchdowns we were almost up by. Yes, we kind of slacked off a little bit in that second half. Still finished the game winning by 10 points, field goal and a touchdown. Still pretty impressive. I just want to see LSU dominate and get rid of Ole Miss. Throw them to the side because you got a week to prepare for Bama. And how you play against Ole Miss determines what the next game looks like. It really does, because you can't go backwards. You have to keep going forwards. This can't be a back and forth thing. With some Saturdays you're playing really good, and some Saturdays you look like the last team in the SEC. If you want to have the rest of a winning season, even with a loss to Alabama per se, you have to play like you did last Saturday, in better, in more improved. Let's see what this defense comes to bring. I think our defense will be more electric. I think we're going to stop the run here. I'd like to see more Harold Perkins. I think Baskerville had a pretty damn good game on Saturday. I think he's going to make a lot of big plays, and I'd like to see Perkins out there more, whether it's pass coverage or run coverage. I know they like him better in there for the run, but I just like to see him there no matter what. Obviously, you have to sub him out every now and then, but he's just too good not to be on the field to make those plays. There all the time making big plays, and he's a freshman, and he's making that big plays. Man, I'm excited for this game on Saturday. I really am. I was really excited for the Florida game. I really was, but I'm not more excited for the Ole Miss game in the sense that I think it's going to be a better game, because I do think it's going to be a little bit better game. I'm just excited to see our offense play again. It was so entertaining to watch that offense. This was the most entertaining LSU game I have seen in a while, because that offense just looked so damn good. So damn good. That offense was just electric. I was smiling like a little kid on Christmas when they had that pass to Jeray Jenkins when the Florida defender jumped off sides and Jane Daniels scanned left, then he scanned right, saw Jeray, and put it on the money for a touchdown. And some people were like, "Oh, well, that might be offsides. That might be LSU. That call comes back." I knew it was on the defender, so I was smiling like a little kid. I was like, "That's a touchdown." And this LSU offense has snapped, and I hope that snap changed. I hope that's not just one game where they're like, "Okay, Florida's defense is weak, and then we have some momentum." I hope that builds up on improvement every single weekend here on out. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. And a lot of people didn't have faith in Jade Daniels like I did. And I'll admit, at the week before the Florida game, going up into the Florida game, I was like, I have hope in Jaden Daniels. I do. But I was saying, if he can't change something soon, going into this Florida game, if we don't see anything different, we need to try out something new, because what do you have to lose at that point? If you know you're going to lose Florida and teams like Florida, you're probably going to lose Ole Miss. You're definitely going to lose to Alabama. But he snapped. And I guess that second players meeting helped, because they snapped. And they looked so good. And even though our defense let a lot of big plays happen, I mean, we caused Florida to punt. What? They scored. They scored again. We caused them to punt. And we have them up punt, obviously. But we let them score twice, and then we let them start. And then they started punting. Obviously, I'd like them not to score at all, and then they punt. But they started punting until they couldn't punt anymore. Until they had to go for fourth down, and then we stopped them on fourth down. And that during the second half. I just hope LSU goes into this game and plays all out again, especially in Death Valley, especially for a home game. Give those fans a sense of, okay, this might be a good winning season. And even if you don't make it to the SEC championship, because obviously that's realistic, not making it to the SEC championship, right? That's not like, oh, that's something wild that I'm saying. Like I'm a Georgia or Alabama fan saying we're not probably going to make it to the SEC championship. I'm an LSU fan saying that, so it's more realistic to say that. Even if you don't make it to it, right? Because you're from the beginning of the season, you knew you really weren't. What if Jaden Daniels decides to stay an extra year and get better? Because yes, I've heard, Jaden Daniels 3 years, he's out. but he's just started to get going in college football as far as in the SEC, which is the hardest part of college football, besides what anyone else wants to say. It's hard. SEC is hard, and he's just started getting get the hang of it in the middle of the season. So what's the likelihood he's going to be able to really get used to the NFL? I just think it'd be better for him. I think he'd get drafted higher if he waited a year. Because like, okay, let's say LSU finishes 9-3, puts up a fight against Bama this year. You got good chances next year. Shit, to go to the playoffs. Just a theory. I think it'd be better for Jaden to get even better. Go for a Heisman, go for a national championship. If you're now just starting to get going in the SEC, maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I don't know anything. But if I'm a quarterback and I'm just starting to get the hang of it in the SEC football, I'm like, you know what? It'd probably be better for me to wait a year because I'm just starting to get going. And the NFL is scary no matter what team you're on, no matter what team you're playing. It's scary. They're the best guys at what they do. And the worst NFL team would absolutely hammer the best college football team any day. So, if you're Jaden Daniels, wanted to get draft high, wait a year, and do spectacular next year for LSU. Do what Joe Burrow did. Obviously, there's never going to be another Joe Burrow. There'll be players like him. There's never going to be another Joe Burrow, but maybe follow in his footsteps a little. Joe Burrow didn't look good his first year. It took him that UCF game, and what was that, the Chick-fil-A Bowl or something? Yes, the bowl, I can't remember. Where they all got PlayStations or something like that. I can't remember. Against UCF, the defending national champion. It took Joe Burrow till that game, till that motherfucker clicked. And then the next year he went on to win a national championship. And last Saturday, against Florida, Jaden Daniels clicked. And will he continue to improve and get better? Maybe, hopefully. But if you see a really good 9-3 LSU to finish off the year, what are your hopes for next year? And I think fans will start to believe in Brian Kelly, especially if we go 9-3 this year, because that shows through all the adversity we've been through, and you got this brand new team, pretty much, and you had a winning season with them. What can you do in the future if that only took you 1 year? That's why I'd really like Jay Daniels to stay and give it a try for another year and get better than he already is right now because he's so good. And you got players like Lamar Jackson in the NFL who really made it. And with Lamar Jackson, he can run a lot, but he's always had trouble throwing the ball, and every now and then he can sit the ball downfield or make really accurate throws. But I think compare him and Jane Daniels for two different things. Obviously, one's in the NFL playing pro football, one's starting to get it going in college football. But I think Jane Daniels can be better. I think Jane Daniels can be a really good dual threat quarterback, the best we've seen in a while, because he is really good at throwing the ball when he trusts his receivers. I think he's better than a Lamar Jackson. Trusts his receivers and gets it going. I think he's going to be a really dangerous dual threat quarterback in the NFL once he starts to get better and better and trust. I think he's going to be a real threat in the NFL. Michael Vick point to. We'll see. We'll see. I'd like to see him. I think if you're an LSU fan, you'd hope to see him stay another year. But that's his decision. Maybe he has a stellar rest of the season and decides, you know what? I did what I needed to do, and I'm gonna go ahead and start making some money in the NFL. Or do you wait another year? Go for a Heisman, go for a national championship. And it's crazy that I'm talking about a Heisman or national championship with LSU. I know, I sound crazy. But maybe you wait for something like that. And potentially your top 10 draft pick. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how LSU's offense fares up against that Ole Miss defense. We'll see if LSU's defense can stop the run. And we'll see how they'll handle Lane Kiffin's offense and what he's got drawn up for LSU. I will have either a video out tomorrow or Friday. Most likely Friday, just because I want to give it a day. Give myself, a couple extra days to watch Ole Miss film and see what they've really been clicking on. I'm probably gonna go back and watch that Kentucky game, because that's the game you can really see. Okay, how did LSU, Ole Miss fare up against a pretty good team like Kentucky? We'll see with that. But again, trying to get better and better every video. Please leave some support. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell me how I'm doing. I'm really loving this. I'm loving the talks, and I had a little rant. Well, not a little rant, but like a little. What am I trying to think of? Like a little theory time about what LSU can do. I know I sound like a crazy fan, but you never know. You never know. I could be right. But yeah, I'm loving LSU football right now. They're getting me more and more excited. I tell you what, a couple of those games have been hard to watch for LSU. In the beginning of that Florida game, I was like, oh crap, it's gonna happen. Is LSU gonna do it again? And they didn't. They attacked and they won. So again, leave a comment, a like, consider subscribing, sharing. Have hope in this team. Look, they did great things on Saturday. Let's see what they can do this Saturday at home. Let's see if they can win it. I think they can. I'm going for LSU. I'll take that 1.5. Let's see. Let's go Tigers, baby. Go Tigers.